Hey guys, welcome back to the Live Out Love podcast. Today I'm here with a very special guest, Mary Crosby Swinney. And me and Mary Crosby, I actually do this thing called As You Are. It's a Bible study through Clemson, and she'll talk about it later. But she's one of the senior leaders, and so I got the chance to hear her speak through one time at As You Are, and just random people knowing you and just stuff like that. And I just reached out to her because she just has a great heart for the Lord, and I just want to hear about everything that she's been teaching you and stuff you've been learning. So if you want, maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, love it. My name's Mary Crosby, and I live here in Clemson. I went to Clemson and graduated back in 2022. So almost 3 years out now, which is wild and crazy. But I got married about 9 months after I graduated, and my husband and I, we both live in Clemson still. I'm a 5th grade teacher. And yeah, I love it. And like Olivia was saying, I am a part of the As You Are, which is a ministry here at Clemson's campus, but also many other colleges have it. And it's a ministry for girls, and anyone's welcome. You literally come as you are. We have Bible studies for freshmen, sophomore, junior, and senior girls. I lead the senior girls. So I'm so excited. If you're a junior and listening to this, I would love to have you come and just be a part of our small group. Yeah. But I am from a small town called Cameron, South Carolina, and I grew up there my whole life, and I moved to Clemson in 2016. So I finished out high school in Clemson. I did junior and senior year here, and then right after that went to Clemson University. So I've been here. This is home for a while now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then will you talk a little bit about your high school experience and moving here?
Yeah.
You said you were a senior when you moved here?
A junior.
A junior. Okay.
Yes.
How was that change and that transition? Do you remember that?
So it was a big transition. So I went to a small school all growing up. It was K through 12. And throughout the whole K through 12, there was 300 people. So in my classes growing up, I had 28 students, I think, in all. So when I moved to Daniel here, it was a big step because in one grade, I had about 300 people, which is the size of my whole school. So my mom always said it was a good stepping stone for me, start small, then a little bit bigger, and then finally college. But the transition, all in all, it was really great. I was excited to move to Clemson. We've always had family ties here, and we've always loved Clemson just growing up. And so I personally was really excited to move to Clemson. It kind of made it easy and fun. But yeah, it pushed me out of my comfort zone. Right. I had to learn what it meant to make new friends, but I think that prepared me for college as well, so I didn't, I kind of learned before what it like to pursue friendship and just all of that. But it definitely was challenging at times. There were some lonely times, but overall it was a really great transition. And looking back, I'm so thankful for all the Lord did.
That's awesome. And then did you always want to go to Clemson even before you moved?
Yes. Okay. So it was the only place I applied. Yeah. So I was it's Clemson or nothing. But my whole my mom, my dad, brother, sister, grandparents, everyone is on the Clemson is all I've known. So yeah.
So you just lived the family legacy.
Yes, kind of. For sure. It was there was no other option. Yeah, but I also didn't want to go anywhere else. So it was great. I love it. It's the best place.
I got coffee the other day, and I just was kind of hearing her story and kind of just how the Lord has just taught you different things throughout your life and your testimony. And I didn't know if you wanted to share your testimony, and maybe that could tie into some stuff later too.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up with amazing parents. I don't remember a day that I didn't know who Jesus was. I was blessed enough to grow up in a house where that was the norm, and going to church was the norm, and just living a life of faith was what I knew. And that was so well modeled for my parents, my grandparents, and everyone. So I really do feel so blessed because of that. I do think it's easy, though, that whenever you grow up like that, it's easy just to kind of follow behind what your parents are doing, or what your older siblings are doing, which is great. And of course, that's what your parents should be doing, is showing you the way. But I don't think that I really knew what a relationship with the Lord looked like until about middle school, beginning of high school. So I remember one day my brother was talking about how he accepted Jesus in his heart. And then a few days later, I went to my mom and was wait, I don't think I've ever done that. And she then that day led me in a sweet prayer. And I remember that moment being okay, when I made the decision of myself or for myself to accept Jesus in my heart. And I will never forget that. We were on my bed upstairs in my childhood home. But even then I always just desired to know who God was. But when I moved to Clemson, I really feel like my relationship with the Lord went from like a religion to a full relationship. And I really had to start pursuing the Lord for like me and to like know who I was and myself. And so just really understanding the difference of like, okay, Jesus wants to know me. And like, he's not just like someone. I remember one time when someone asked me, and I always like look back at this and kind of laugh, but it just also shows my like maturity and like what the Lord has done. I remember one time when they asked me, what does it mean to be a Christian? I was like, it means to follow a set of rules. And now I'm like, that is just so wrong. That is not what it is. I remember saying like the gospel is kind of like a rule book. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's so sweet that like, that's always was kind of my like, I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm going to do good things. But I never really understood why. And I really feel like in end of high school, beginning of college, I'm like, yes, of course, we're going to do good things, but we do good things because of what Christ did for us. And it's not like, do this, do this, do this, and you're going to be saved. It's like, no, God saves you and he's going to make you into his image. And because of that, then we do good works. Like, I don't have to do anything to be saved. Like, my good works are a result of Christ's salvation in me. And so just like that mind shift, like that, changing that of like, it's not just a rule book. Like, it's like, I do these things because of what Christ did for me. And I could do nothing and he's still going to love me. So really just it's not looking at it between like good and bad, but just, it's like God. And I want to live my life for God. And I want what I do, the way that I live, to represent that. And because of that, like good things come, but I'm also not going to be perfect. And I'm going to make the wrong choice and I'm going to do bad and I'm going to do different things. But in the end, like my ultimate goal is just to be more like Jesus. And a result of that is fruit and doing good things. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That was really good. No, that was so good. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we can wrap that now. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was amazing. I just love like how you're saying that. We had church on yesterday and they were talking about like the book of Ruth and it was really sweet of how like it like showed the picture of like even through hard times where like a bad thing happened of like Ruth lost her husband. And then like because of that though, it led into like her ended up being in Jesus' legacy, and it gave you like chills, like hearing about that. But it like goes hand in hand when like we mess up, but the Lord gives us so much grace, and like because of that, like you don't know what like the story's got unfold for you, of like what He has in store for later, and just by trusting His plan too. Yeah, just really sweet. Of like goes hand in hand.
Yeah, like and it's like in those times of like hardship or trial, like Lord's not far from you. Like He is literally in there with you, and like. In Psalm 23, it says, when I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, like He's walking through it with us, but He's not behind us. He's beside us, but He's also going ahead of us. And just knowing that like God is walking ahead of me when I'm going through hard times, but He's also holding my hand and like in the valley with me and like feeling the pain, the suffering, the hardship that I'm feeling. And that's just like really sweet. So,
wow. That was amazing. Well, kind of going off of that, I kind of asked Mary Crosby how her and her husband met. And so I didn't know if you could share that story because I think it's really sweet. And I think you'll have a lot of advice just for people my age who are going through just like dating and relationships and wanting like aspirations to be married someday. So if you have any encouragement, I'd love to hear it.
Yes. So I could really go talk about this for an hour, 2 hours. So I'm going to try to do the short version because it is a really long story. But long story short, like I said, so I grew up in Cameron, which is like 2.5 hours away from here. And my whole family, all I knew was Clemson. And we were huge Clemson fans all growing up. We would come to all the football games, do all the tailgating before, like every weekend we were here. And, you know, as a Clemson fan, a lot of people always like storm the field after the games. And I was like in middle school maybe. And my friends and I, we would always like storm the field after the games. You know, most people go to find players and take pictures with players. But I just, for some reason, always thought that Drew, my husband, was really cute. And he was a part of football at that time. Or he still is. And I just like thought he was so cute. And he has no idea who I am. I only know him because of just like looking through the program at games, like seeing his picture, or maybe social media was kind of coming around at that time. But I would like go and find him after the games as just like a fangirl, which is so crazy to say, but I truly was like a fangirl. He calls me a stalker, like being funny. I'm like, I was not a stalker. But anyway, so I would go, and we have like pictures from I was like 13 and 14 of the two of us after Clemson games.
Yeah.
And he had no idea who I was. So fast forward, all throughout like my middle and beginning of high school years, like I had this big crush on Drew Swinney. And I was like, oh my gosh, like he's so cute. Anytime I would like see a picture, we'd all like freak out, my friends. And so I just always had a big crush on him. And it was always like a dream or like another life. But I just always thought he was the one, or so cute. And anyway, so fast forward, the Lord just, you never know what's coming next, truly. And that is exactly what happened to our family. So my dad, he played in baseball for Clemson and football, but he got drafted before he finished his degree. Right. So he played in the major leagues for many years. And then once he retired, we were back home in Cameron. He was just coaching at the local high school. And we were home and settled. And a lot of things happened, but ultimately the Lord like called my dad back to school. And he went to Clemson to go finish his degree at 50 years old, which is crazy. Yeah. But he was like, I am not going back to school. Like, I'm 50 years old. Like, at this point, it's fine. I don't need my degree. But like, the Lord just like never stopped pursuing him in that. So we moved to Clemson, and that's when I come to Daniel. And Daniel is where Drew goes to school. And so you were like, yes. So ultimately, my parents like left the decision up to me because my sister was in college, my brother was going to be a freshman, and I was the one like moving high school. So like, you know, that's like the biggest change. And they're like, you know what? Like, if you don't want to move, like we can stay home. And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm good to go. Because I knew like, well, one, I've always loved Clemson, but two, I was like, Drew goes there. Yeah, that'll be fine. I've always had a crush on him. Which it sounds so crazy, and it is, but it really is just the Lord's hand.
No, but also it's so real.
It's and it is our story, and it's really crazy. But it's just cool to see the Lord's hand over just even back to when my dad like was playing baseball and didn't get like, you know, things just had to happen for you know,
the invisible strings.
Yes, the invisible strings for sure. And so we moved to Clemson, and in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, Drew and I are going to start dating immediately. Like, of course, our dads are working football together. Like, we're always in the same circle. Our families are friends. We hang out all the time. I was like, of course, like, we're going to start dating immediately. And that's just not how it went at all. But when I look back, and like, this is really a big part of my testimony. When I look back at like the year and a half pretty much before Drew and I started dating, like the Lord really did so much in me, and he like revealed himself to me. I like joke about it, but I'm like, if I would have started dating Drew right away, like we might not be married. My identity would have been in him. My worth would have been in him. And it was in that time, in that season, that the Lord, like, I really had to wait, and I wanted something so bad, like truly like desired something so bad, but it was just not the Lord's timing. And so I had to rely on the Lord. I had to learn to just give up, to let go, and let fully go, because sometimes like we want to try to let go, but we want to hang on just a little bit and like have it control just a little bit. But the Lord just like really showed me what it meant to fully let go and let God take over.
So can I ask, like, how did you, like, did you have steps to fully let go? Because sometimes like I feel like I try to do that. Yeah. And then like you said, I'm like still holding on a little bit. No, I mean, I never like, I definitely would fall back into like trying to control things for sure. But I think it's just over time, it was sweet to see how the Lord worked. So one thing that I did, and I was actually thinking about this the other day that I wish I would start back and do again, but I had so many journals, like so many of just prayers. And that was actually my wedding gift to Drew. It was like a stack of journals that I wrote about him. And it was like 2 years before we got married. Or before we even started dating. Okay. So like just like walking through that season of like, God, like this is so silly. This is so silly. But some were like, God, shows my immaturity back then too of my faith. But look, God, Drew deleted Snapchat. Like, what am I gonna do? Which is so silly. That is so real. But it's like, so sweet of like seeing like the things that I was going through. But I like, even something so silly as that, like, you gave it to the Lord. I had to give it to the Lord and be like, you know what? Like, this is out of my control. And so
I journaled a lot, and I like wrote my prayers out. That's what really like helped me then. It doesn't look the same for me now, because I was like, I would love to get back into journaling. So I think every season's different. But I like had so many prayers. I was praying just for myself. I was praying for him. And it all sounds so crazy, but it really is just so sweet how the Lord just showed me that, Mary Crosby, in order for you to like get something that you really want, you have to know who I am first. And you have to pursue me first. My husband, and this is kind of like advice to like you were saying, my husband always says that if two people are just pursuing Jesus, so like Drew and I, or just you and a guy, whatever, are pursuing Jesus, you're going to eventually meet together one day. But if one person's like pursuing the other person, or and the other person's pursuing Jesus, like you're going to cross paths, or vice versa. So the ultimate, like, what like the main message is, like, when you're just pursuing the Lord, like he's going to put that person in your path. And it might not seem like the time that you want. You might want it right now. And you might be like, I've been pursuing the Lord for 5 years now, and he still hasn't given me my person. But if you just keep going and keep pursuing the Lord, like he will give you what you desire. And like he tells us that. He's like, ask for the desires of our hearts. And but we have to let go our own time and our timeline, because our timeline is never going to be the best. And so, like I said, I thought we were going to start dating soon, but it was 1.5 years until we started dating. And it was in that 1.5 years that like I learned so much of who I was, and I learned who I am in the Lord. And I was so confident in myself as a child of God, where I think that if, like I said, we didn't start dating, I would have been putting all my worth and all my value in him. And I mean, I still, to this day, like I can struggle with that. I can put my hope in things of this earth all the time. Like I don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all perfect, but I'm constantly reminded, like, there's nothing in this earth that's going to satisfy what we truly desire and long for, and that's Jesus. And so even in marriage, like I'll put too much on Drew and like want him to feel all of this, and he can't, because he's a broken and sinful human. Even though he's the best person in the world to me, like he still is broken. And so like that's something I'm still learning in marriage. It's like God is still my number one. Like Drew isn't. Like God is always my number one. So even in dating and relationships, like God has to be your number one. And if he isn't, then everything else isn't going to fall in line.
So true.
I love the analogy of like when you wear a buttoned up shirt, if you miss the top button, the rest are going to be off. And so just making sure that like that number one button is Jesus. And you have it right, because if you miss it, everything else below it is going to be off. And so and I don't do that every day. Like I don't want you to think I do, because I still am learning it. But just having that mindset of like Jesus is number one, and all else will fall. Your relationship will be blessed. Your marriage will be blessed. You will be blessed. But Jesus has to be number one.
Wow.
So long story short, I've got a rambling. Long story short, we started dating the end of senior year. And it was one of those things, like when we started dating, it was like, all right, this, like we know, like we became friends senior year, developed a strong friendship. And then end of senior year, we started dating, and then all throughout college, and we got engaged right after. But I mean, our just ultimate goal as a relation, like in our relationship, is to put Jesus first, and for that to be the loudest thing about us, because that's what we care most about. So not that we have it all together, not that we have it perfect. We don't have a perfect marriage, that's for sure. But we do try to strive to have Jesus as number one each and every day.
Wow, that's incredible. And just going back to how you were saying, like, maybe that some of your prayers are immature. I think it was so mature of you to put that to the Lord. Like being that young, like literally for me, junior year of high school was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But like, I know, like, I just remember. I would have never known. I just remember for me, like, in being that young, I didn't know like that the Lord was like my like identity, like my purpose. And I would strive like for all these different like attentions from like girl drama, from like guys or relationships, stuff like that. And I never once like have a journal. So I think it's really sweet that the Lord just placed that desire in your heart to give everything to him. At such a young age. And to like be a child of God when we're a kid, which is really sweet. And like childlike faith, like asking for the small things, asking for the little things, because God cares about the little things, you know, he really does. And then it's also sweet to go back and like read over them and just like really see how the Lord was working in me, and just like answered prayers and just his faithfulness. Wow.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Does he still have your prayers?
Yes.
It's so sweet. So you didn't tell him at all about it?
I didn't. And I wrote, so I had like most of ours were in high school. And then in college, I did it some, but not quite as much.
Yeah.
And then like I finished it with like on our wedding day, February for us. So it was just sweet and like just see where it started and
sweet.
not where it ended, but where like where we're stepping into. So it was sweet.
Wow. Well, I guess like now, like, I guess end of senior year, you started dating. How was it like going from high school, kind of like liking each other, to then transitioning to college? Like, what was like things that you put place in your relationship to just make it so the Lord was the one?
Yeah. I think for us that we just, from the very beginning, like I was kind of saying, but we just really wanted our relationship to be a testimony. We wanted people to see Jesus through us, and that wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like what the world or our friends or people were doing. Just like making the decision like apart from each other to fully pursue the Lord is really what's going to make you together strong. And again, it's not all you're going to go through seasons, that it's not always like that. And there were many seasons, especially in college, that I wasn't pursuing the Lord like as strong as I wish I was. And so I was putting all this expectation on Drew, and he wasn't feeling it because, of course, he can't. Only God can. Acknowledge, okay, Lord, I'm putting too much hope in him and not in you, and it's causing me to like doubt and question and like put these high expectations on him that he's not capable of filling. Only you are.
Right.
So just like pursuing the Lord separately is really important, but then also together, of course. But
wow, that's awesome. I guess another question I had too. I guess it's so popular nowadays in college for just like hookup culture. Do you have any advice for maybe like girls who are wanting to pursue just like purity and just like literally only wanting to date one guy and then seeing their friends maybe just be with all these different people? And I know you went to Clemson, so you know the culture and what it is kind of like. I don't know. Maybe it was different.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it just, you have to be so strong in your beliefs. Yeah. And the world is going to preach different things to you, and they're going to make you feel guilty or embarrassed or shame. But at the end of the day, like, you have to know, like Jesus says, the world's going to hate you, but take heart. It hated me first. Even with relationships, like, the world's not going to agree with you, and they're going to like say you're crazy, that's embarrassing, like whatever. But you just have to believe that what God says is true, and know that like what God says is true is enough. Yeah. Like, it is completely enough. It's not, you shouldn't ask, but if what, like all these questions, like, no, God's word is true and it's enough. So just believing that and being confident in that is really important. But also, like, it is important to surround yourself with believers and with people who are going to encourage you and challenge you and push you, and who have the same goal as you, which I know is hard because there's a lot of people who don't have the same goal. And of course, be friends, be kind. Yeah. Like, be around those people as well, but you have to also pursue uncommon community. Yeah. And even whether that's a mentor or church, whatever it is, like being around people who are going to push you and make you better is also super important.
It's good advice. Yeah. Well, thank you just for sharing just all your story just about you and Drew. I think for me, I like my whole life, I always just kind of like, I guess not my whole life, because like in kindergarten, maybe I did have a crush on a boy in kindergarten, probably. But I just have always like had the desire of relationships. In high school, I would date people, and I wasn't as strong in my faith as I think I really am like at this point in my life. And and so like for when it comes to like guys, like I would date these guys who were Christians. Right. And it was literally up until last year where I would be in relationships where, I guess this is I'm getting real with people on the camera, but it's just like something where I would always like date these guys who I thought were Christians or who said they were, but like their actions weren't showing it. But then it would kind of reflect on me. I'm like, okay, well, then what am I doing? If these are the guys I'm going after, then how is my heart? And so I don't know if anyone's listening and like, maybe you're in the same boat as I am of like always picking the wrong guy, or like, I just think for me, I've always was striving for like the worldly relationship with like a guy. And that was the one thing I was striving for. And so literally me and my ex now, like we broke up in August, and I was so like glad that we did. Like there's a sense of like, okay, like we did it. This is good, because like I knew it wasn't fulfilling the Lord. But then part of me was like mad, like, why can't I like now get a good like godly boyfriend, you know? And so, but then again, I was still desiring that relationship. Even now, it's like I'm still desiring, but like a more of a godly relationship, like a guy who can lead me. And I just remember like one day I was driving over literally, you know, the bridge, kind of like you're going to Newspring.
Yes. Yeah.
Or the lake. And I remember the Lord just like literally like speaking to me of like, Olivia, like you have to give all your desires to me. Like you have to trust me with everything. And like you're kind of saying like that one thing you're still holding on to. That was like the one thing I was still holding on to. I was just like that desire for a godly relationship. But because I was still holding on to it, I wasn't focusing completely on the Lord.
Yeah.
And so now the season of my life, like I've always had this little part of me that was always like not content with being like single. And I hate the word single. Yeah. It's just so annoying. But it's like your time will come. And if like that's your desire, the Lord's going to bless you with that. But I think right now I'm so content in like what the season of life is and what the Lord's given me. And I'm so thankful for the guys I dated and the guys that I broke up with. Like I'm so glad that I am like just like striving now after the Lord and his heart. And I'm just in such a place where like that's my only focus. And it's been really sweet because like a year ago, that would have not been my focus. Like I remember being in my relationship a year ago and comparing to all these awesome Christian couples and being like, well, I want that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and now that I'm single, I like know like someday the Lord's going to bless me with that. And it's just been so cool. Like how much when you give the desires of your heart to the Lord, like your whole like mindset shifts. Like your whole heart posture shifts. And I didn't even like, I've been a Christian my whole life or like knew the Lord my whole life. And like that has just not happened to me. And it's like insane.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. And there's so much freedom that comes when you fully let go. Because when you're still like holding on by a thread or like there's that one thing that you want to hold on to, you're still like being held bondage by that. And so letting go is not easy. And like we live in a world that you want to be able to control everything. But again, there's just so much freedom that comes from just fully releasing it to the Lord and knowing that like he is so much better than anybody I could ever imagine. Someone said this to me recently and they were like, if I took everything away from you, would I still be good? And it's just that idea that like I can have literally nothing.
Right.
And he is still good.
Yeah.
You know, like I can have everything stripped from me, but he is still good. And so whether that's relationships or your job or school, whatever it is, like if that thing is taken away from you or if you don't have it right now and you think you're going to find your worth and value in that, he can easily take it away, but he's still good.
Yeah.
You know, because he is greater than everything. And so just knowing that like nothing, again, is going to satisfy me. The only thing that's going to bring true fulfillment and satisfaction is Jesus. And I can have that even if I have nothing. You know?
Yeah. So good. And like it is okay to have those desires, kind of like you're saying. Like,
absolutely.
Like the Lord does bless that. And actually it's something I went to like a retreat, I guess a month ago, and a girl was speaking about just like desires and stuff. And she said like, you'll always have desires. It could be worldly desires or it could be desires from the Lord. But she said, like, the more you walk with the Lord and, like, you guys are together, like, your desires start shaping into what he wants for you. And it's so sweet of just, like, wow. Like, that just, like, is amazing. And then seeing you just being like, that was my desire. And then once you really gave all to the Lord, like, your desire was still, like, to marry Drew. And, like, carry your heart out.
Yeah, no,
and, like,
it is crazy.
Because that was from the Lord.
And, like, when you are like walking with the Lord, like you're saying, like your desires are going to reflect him and not reflect the world. And it's just that change, which makes it really sweet. When you start like realizing, okay, maybe I don't desire something that I used to desire, but now I'm desiring something that's even better. Right. And that's sweet in the Lord.
What was his like point of view in high school before you guys kind of started? Yeah. Like,
so,
you know it all?
Yeah. He was always like very focused, very just like, school or Jesus, school, football.
was he interested in you?
No.
Like you when you moved to Daniel.
When I moved, so our families were because our dads were together. We had to interact, and he'll say, if he was here, he would say the same thing. So he'll say like, of course I'd be nice to her, but I knew she liked me. I'm like, how did you know I liked you?
So funny.
Whatever. But he's like, I didn't want to give off anything that would like make you think that I like you or whatever. And so he was like, I'd be nice to you, but I didn't want to give you like too much. And so our junior year, we really weren't even like friends. It was kind of just like awkward. Not awkward, but kind of
like
I was shy.
Making scenarios.
Yeah, I was making scenarios all the time.
Yeah.
But then we went to prom together junior year, and that was really sweet and really fun. And like I think from there, like we have like our friendship started. Yeah. And that I remember like senior year is just fun in general. You kind of all get together and just do things all the time. But that fall, like we really developed a friendship. And that's what for like 6 months, we just like hung out in either groups or just like became friends.
Yeah.
Which is just fun.
It's sweet. How it
Yes.
happens
And like,
that.
I think he realized like, oh, like she's not weird.
She's not a stalker.
She's not a stalker.
That's so funny.
But, and again, he just wanted like, he always said, I don't want to date today. Like, I'm going to marry. There's something sweet about, dream big.
Yes.
And there's no dream too small. There's no prayer too big.
Yeah.
Like, truly. And I laugh. I'm like, I think about my middle school stuff. I'm like, she would freak out knowing that I'm married today, And it's just sweet. Like, what the Lord has for you is even better than you could ever imagine. And like, pray big prayers, pray expectant prayers. And you never know what he's going to do with that.
Yeah, I always have a quote that says, pray the impossible.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's literally the God of impossible. Like, he's so big that we can pray anything.
Yeah.
And he just wants to see our faith in that.
Yeah. That's one thing I feel like I've been learning is, like, sometimes I feel, like, guilty for praying big prayers. But I'm like, wait, the big prayers that are big to me are actually so small.
Yeah.
They're so small to God because he can do anything. He's the God of impossible. Like, there's nothing too big for him. So just, like, being confident in that and like just praying big prayers, praying for things that you desire and that you want. And if they're not God's desire, that he would take it away from you, and he will. Like he will take things away that are not from him. And that's like sweet of him as well.
Yeah. And it's so cool to think like the more you do like go after like the Lord's heart and then you see how much he pursues you back.
Yeah.
He pursues us no matter like what we're going after. And if we keep going after him, sorry, I'm like rambling, but I just think it's just really sweet that no matter what, he's always our pursuer.
Yeah.
And I just love the word pursue. I keep saying that to people.
I know. It's like, sometimes I feel like we imagine God being so far away from us and being distant. And I mean, even like as a Christian, I can go through seasons where I feel like God is far and distant, but God is never far. He is never distant. We are the ones that are either turning our backs to him or like our faces are veiled from seeing him. And so when we do start pursuing, we'll like realize, oh my gosh, he's been right here all along. Like he's never left us. He says he'll never leave or forsake us, no matter what we're going through. And just knowing that he's going to walk with you hand in hand, clearing the way for you. And we just have to like turn our hearts to him and recognize that. And it's never that he was far away, it's that we were. And just turning our hearts back to him and be like, oh, he's been right here all along, and he like wants that. That's what his greatest desire is, is for us to know him.
Yeah, there's this song called Too Good by Abby Gimbo. I don't know if you heard of it, but like one of her lines was like, Lord, I was going to go talk to you today and I forgot, I didn't, but like, you're still there. You're still right here no matter what, even when I turn my back to you. And it's like, it's so true. Like you said, like he's right here. He isn't a faraway God. And I like, it's just so sweet to think how like you finally, like you said, you learned to have like a relationship with him. And that's what I guess the difference is of like the relationship over religion. And just like being with Jesus and knowing him.
It's not just like doing all the right things, doing all the good things, but it's like being in a relationship with the Lord. And that's like our greatest desire, and that's his greatest desire. And so when we are in relationship with him, like beautiful things happen, and we are transformed because we know him then, and we were like made into his image. And when we're chasing after him, pursuing him, we know more of who we are. People always say, like, I love the quote, it's like, you don't know who you are until you know who God is. And so like, just the fact of like, I am of nothing apart from God. And until I fully know who God is, then that's how I know who I am and as a child of God.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Well, before we wrap up, I didn't know if this doesn't have to be about relationships or anything, but do you have any advice of just like, you wish you could have told your college self? And maybe you can tell us college girls.
That's a great question. I think when I look back at college years, like a piece of advice, and I do feel like I tried to live this out, but I never was, and I still am not perfect at it. But just knowing that like this life is not about you. Like it is not about me at all. It is not about the clothes I wear, the way that I look, the things I do, my major. It is not about me. And there's so much striving. I feel like in life as girls in college of like looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, having a certain relationship, being a part of a friendship or friend group, and just realizing that life is so much bigger than that. And my ultimate goal, and the reason I was created for this earth, and the reason every child of God is created for this earth, is to simply reflect the image of God. not to reflect myself, not for someone to look at me and be like, ooh, I like her outfit. I mean, of course, like that's fun and great. Or, ooh, she looks good. What is her workout routine? Like that is not our purpose. Our purpose is when someone sees us, that they only see Jesus. And so just like that mindset of like, the things I do, it's not about me. It's not about making my name known at all. It's about making Jesus known. And like, that's my greatest prayer and greatest heart's desire, is just to make him known and just put myself aside and let God just use me, no matter what that looks like, no matter what that means. Just let him use me for him to make his glory shown. And so that would be probably what I would say.
That's awesome. And it really just goes back to surrendering. And it's just so funny because since like my freshman year of college, that word has always been with me. And I just feel like the Lord is just saying to anyone, not just to me, like in college, like you just have to surrender everything. Because like every year you're going to be striving after something. Like the girls who are seniors right now, like the post-grad plans, like that's going to be something that's anxious. That's going to be something that you're going to be worried about. And like you're going to strive after that thing. But like if you give it to the Lord, like he's going to bless it. I know my friend Sophia, she always says like when you're applying for things of like just like jobs or things you want next year, something like that, like pray over them, and like the Lord's gonna close the doors that are supposed to be closed and open the ones that are gonna be like there for you. And so it's like really sweet of like the art of surrendering with the Lord. It's just like the power of prayer, just praying into those things that you really do desire and you really are like striving after.
And that doesn't stop after college. Like I'm still every day having to surrender things. And I think there's this, I think you said it when we get coffee, it's like this thought of like, when you're married, you have a job, you have a house, like you've made it. And because that we were talking about. That's in my head. That's what I always think. Honestly saying, I'm like, okay, once I'm married, like I've made it. This is great. And like, no, I will never make it on this side of earth. Like
there's always a strive.
There's always going to be something, and I'm not going to make it until I get to heaven. And so just like knowing that in this life, you will have trouble. You will go through hard things. You will face adversity. It's not going to be easy. And Jesus tells us that his life wasn't easy, yet we can walk through this life with so much confidence and grace and joy because of Jesus. And still surrendering things every day, and just the having that mindset and knowing how to do that, and praying things and just giving it all to God, and beautiful things come from that.
Wow. That was really beautifully well said. No, I don't know. Thank you so much for just coming on and just getting to just talk about just everything that the Lord's been teaching you. And I just love like hearing about just your past and where you are now. Story. No, it's so crazy, but it's such a God story.
It is.
I love that your prayers were so bold, and like your faith was so big that like you weren't letting go the desire. Like I know you probably had way more desires than that, but like the story of how you and Drew met is just so sweet, and like never stop telling people that, because there are girls everywhere who probably have had a crush on a kid. And I'm not saying like maybe that big crush that if you're a middle schooler listening that's gonna be your husband someday, but it's sweet to know that like you never know. But also like you never know like how, if you give it to your Lord, how big your prayers are. And if that's a desire that you have, like he is gonna like bless you with that in
your desires in line with his desire, like it's gonna happen. But it's not gonna happen because there's better things.
But it also is a sweet reminder of like he's such an on-time God, and you have to have patience in that and just walk with him in a season of life of being like, it's like that saying of like, be where your feet are, which is so true of just like being a Christian and being with Jesus. Like you just have to live in the moment and only worry about today. Don't worry about tomorrow. And how sweet is that? And now here you are now.
And I look back to that season of waiting, and that season of like just really walking through of like, I want something so bad, and I'm so thankful for that season. Even though like there were nights I was like in tears, or I'm like, I don't understand God, questioning God. I look back and I'm so thankful. So there's so much to be learned in the seasons of waiting and in the seasons of striving or desiring something. And there's so much to be learned about God and yourself as well, which is I'm thankful for that.
Well, thank you again so much for sharing. Before we close, I didn't know if there's any chance you could pray.
I would love to.
Perfect.
I would love to. Dear Lord, I just thank you for today. I thank you for this conversation. God, thank you for Olivia and Live Out Loud podcast, and just that you're using her in this way to just make your name known. God, I just pray over anyone listening to this that they would just seek you in the waiting, seek you in the hard times, and seek you with their desires. God, I pray that whatever desires are on our hearts right now, that we would just pray that they would be in line with yours. And if they're not, God, take them away from us. Help us just to pursue you as our number one, to put you number one in our life. And when we do, everything else flows from that, God. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect, but you promise to be with us, to walk with us, and to be hand in hand as we walk through the storms, the trials, the hardships, the seasons of waiting, God. Lord, I just pray you bless and be with everyone who is listening to this, God. Help them just to fully understand who you are so they can be more confident in who they are themselves as a child of God. We love you and we praise you and thank you for today. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you again. I keep saying that. And thank you guys for listening. I'm going to link Mary Crosby, your Instagram and stuff below in the captions, and I'll tag you on Instagram. But and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.